I said, yeah, I know it's small, but we should focus on the potential here, don't you think? Like any other unmonetized, working freelance filmmaker here on YouTube, talking head interviews are my bread and butter. I use these interviews to drive the narratives for most of the video work I do, so I've got to get it right. But circumstances don't always make that easy. Like today, where I'm working in a tiny room in the back of an office. Not only is there not much space, but there's also not much time. But that doesn't matter to my client though. They have high expectations, as they should. So in this video, I'll go over everything I do to film a professional interview in a small space in a hurry. I'll cover location, lighting, sound, I'll even throw in a mistake or two. Let's get into it. Okay, on this day, I was filming a testimonial for a medical provider I've worked with for years. They just moved offices and their new place was great. It had a modern look with lots of glass and steel, and I wanted to make sure the look and feel of my video was going to match the aesthetics of their brand. Some days that's easier to do than others. I only had a short window to film, and we had to do it during the week when the office was open, which means people were working. The lobby was awesome, but it was way too busy, and the treatment rooms were mostly being used with patients all day, so that left me with this one little room in the back of the office. So I could choose this wall or this wall with the window. Whenever I'm at an indoor location, the first thing I do is turn out the overhead lights. Overhead lights cast unflattering shadows on people's faces, and they can make the color look weird. I want to control the lighting, just like I want to control the composition and the sound. I have to be in control, but it's not like a problem or anything. I usually try to get as much depth as the room allows. It just makes it easier for me to separate the subject from the background. Now this room was about 8 feet on the long end, so there wasn't a whole lot of depth to be had. I decided to go with the window for several reasons. 1, it's a large source of light, so it'll brighten up the room. 2, the window has a film on it to diffuse the light without using shutters or shades. 3, we can still see the view through the diffusion. And 4, adding in some nature helps warm up the frame and keep it from feeling too clinical. Seeing through the window will add some extra depth that we desperately need, but I want to give you guys a warning, shooting towards a window is not always the right choice. Depending on what's on the other side, it can be distracting, especially if you have changing weather or you're stuck filming with only one camera angle. The light coming through can change dramatically and it'll give your editor fits trying to keep the look consistent. But I have less than an hour for this testimonial and it's summer in San Diego, so we're good to go. Okay, let's talk about composition. In small rooms, I try not to film straight towards a wall. It can make the room feel even smaller. I like the corner here because we can see the window and the light from it creates a leading line towards our subject's face. If I had more time, I'd add like hair lighting and maybe some background lighting for even more separation, but that's a topic for another video. So for my main angle, I'm on a 35 with my subject positioned in the right third of the frame. Done. And for my second camera angle, I'll shoot a close-up from the side with my 24-70. Looking back, I made a little mistake here. I like the initial framing of my second angle, but I didn't pay enough attention to how she moved as she talked. So you could see here that she twisted away from the second camera during the interview, so this angle is not as flattering as it could be. I typically like to see both eyes and keep the nose from breaking the cheek line on my side angle. I also don't like that you can see a tiny bit of flower here. Oh well, it's a learning opportunity and not a deal breaker, just something to look out for next time. Learning from small mistakes like that really helped me improve every single shoot. I like to stick with the main camera angle for testimonials most of the time anyways. Seeing her whole face and a little bit of body language really helps build trust with the audience, and cutting back and forth too much can sometimes look too produced. That's camera angles, let's move on to lighting. In a small room with a big source of light like the window, I need my lighting to draw attention back to the person I'm interviewing. The easiest way to do that would be to bring in one of my big lights and just overpower the sunlight in the background, but I'm trying to keep my footprint small in this room, so I went with option B. I've talked about these before, but I love these little Aputure 60X lights. I keep them in my wedding kit and they're perfect for small room interviews like this. I just pop a V-mount battery on the light and attach this little softbox from SmallRig. I don't need the grid here because I actually want more light spill in this room. I'll put the light on the same side of my subject as the window. Not like it's going to look like the light on her face is coming from the window, it's just less distracting for the viewer that way. The diffuser on the window is actually changing the temperature of that daylight streaming in, so I set my Kelvin to about 5900 to match. Sometimes I'll intentionally go for more color contrast in my interviews, but with the white background, my subject is already going to come in warmer than the rest of the scene, and I don't want her to look yellow. She also has glasses, so I have to be careful not to get too much glare. The trick here is to set the light up high. I want to get the light high enough to avoid the glare and make it comfortable for her to see me during the interview. But I don't want it so high that I create that little mustache under her nose. You gotta pay attention to those shadows. After I set up the key light, I realized that I could use a little bit more fill, so I grabbed another P60, cranked the power to 100, and focused the Fresnel lens to spot so I was getting as much power as possible out of that light. Then I pointed up at the white ceiling tiles as a bounce. Okay, lastly, sound. I typically like to run a boom mic from above straight into my A-cam, but there's a really loud thumping coming from the F45 downstairs, and I didn't feel like asking Marky Mark to turn it down today. So, lav mics it is. With her outfit, a mic clip wasn't too distracting, and I could get the microphone really close to her mouth to help isolate her from the rest of the noise. Plus, I always listen in with headphones to make sure she's coming through loud and clear throughout the whole interview. So that's it. Hopefully you got some tips from this video Actually, that's not nearly it. The most important part of these shoots is actually directing the interview, and I've worked really hard over the years to develop a style that's both conversational for the client and also gets me all the information I need to make a solid edit. If you're interested in that kind of stuff, consider subscribing because I'm working on that video as well as others talking about how I color correct and edit these interviews. Until then, thanks for watching, and I'll be in touch again soon with more tips for your next shoot.